What would you say are some of the biggest struggles you see when it comes to travelers trying to get work around the world, and how would they avoid those mistakes?
Well, I've mentioned the visa problem, and either you can, that is such a big hurdle that you think, oh, I can't possibly work because I might be breaking the law and and therefore be put off the idea entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Or at the other extreme, you are very cavalier about the rules and get caught. So anyway, the best thing there is to be well informed and to know what the regulations are, but then to play it by ear. And if it is just a very, very informal, short-term thing that you're doing, then possibly you don't need to worry too much, because getting work visas and work permits is a huge nightmare, and it's got a lot worse. That's another change that I didn't mention earlier when you were saying what changes I've seen, which is the creation of the European Union, so that as more and more countries have joined the European Union, which means that people within Europe can work without visas, that has made it more difficult for Americans and Canadians to work in those countries. So there are some exceptions, and people with an Irish grandparent can sometimes get an Irish passport, which means they're then part of the European Union, and there are ways around it for some, but that is a big problem.
Are you saying that's specific for European countries? They all can work in each other's countries now without needing a visa.
That's it. That's right.
It.
Yeah, and it used to be just the main 12, but now more and more, like Poland and the Czech Republic and these countries have also joined, and so therefore instantly their allegiance is more towards, especially for hiring English teachers, to England and Ireland, Britain and Ireland, and therefore there are many jobs for Americans too, but it is becoming more bureaucratic for them than it is for Brits. So that's one aspect of it. But then in many other countries, like China, it's an absolutely even playing field. So the visa situation is just the same as it is for Brits and Americans, and there are just hoops to be jumped through. And once you have an employer, they'll help you do it. And you should be patient and even-tempered, and in the end, if provided you have a job, then you should be able to get a visa. Well, I'm generalizing wildly here. The application for visas always comes from an employer to his own authorities. So you have to have someone on your side before you can even start the process. So the best thing is to go to a country or two, or maybe over the internet if you're very lucky, fix up a job, and then trust to the employer. Well, make sure the employers are applying on your behalf. And it's a pain for them, so they really only like to do it if you're a real asset, going to be a real asset, not someone who's going to stay for 8 weeks or something. But then there are other ways around this. Volunteering doesn't come into maybe exempt from the rules, and it's a hugely complex subject, and it differs enormously from country to country. And one thing is that there often are no it's very hard sometimes to find out even what the rules are, because it's all done at the discretion of some individuals. So I've known of people who queue up all day for a visa for something and get rejected, and then go back the next day thinking, well, I might get someone different today. and sure enough, they have succeeded that way. So perseverance is definitely the key to overcoming most of these struggles. Although, of course, in some cases it's impossible to get a visa, so you have to be prepared to, if you really want to work in that country, to break the law, and that's not really advisable in lots of circumstances.